What's up, motorists? It's going to be a good video today because we have been blessed with this, the BMW M2. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of all our future uploads. Now, when the 2 Series first took over the 1 Series coupes and convertibles, BMW made the first M2 as the baby M car in the lineup. Now, this is the second generation M2, and this one actually shares most of its DNA with its older brother, the M4 instead, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But one of the things the M2 does not share with the M4 is the M4's giant nose. Nope. Instead, as you can see, the M2 has this much smaller and more squared off version of BMW's signature kidney grille. I honestly feel like it has a bit of a Gundam vibe to it. But first, let me open up the bonnet and show you the beating heart of the M2 and the M4. And also the M3, because the 3-litre straight-six engine used in the M2 is actually the exact same one used in all 3 of those M cars. Now, of course, this has been detuned slightly, but it still produces 453 horsepower and 515 Newton meters of torque. That's 90 more horsepower than the old M2. But of course, this is a bigger car. Now, this M2 is actually longer and wider than the old one, and actually shares the exact same track width front and back as the M4. Now, it's not difficult to see how and where they've gained these extra dimensions. One, of course, is using the M4's platform, but 2, look at these fender flares front and back. They're just huge. They give this car this, like it's been injected with steroids look. It's really muscular as it drives along on the road. Well, anyway, we move on to this, the carbon roof that comes standard on the M2 to help lower the center of gravity of the car and further improve its handling capabilities. Check these out. We have 6-pot front brakes. These are huge, and the discs themselves are like the same size as the plates used to low hay during Chinese New Year. And of course, you have the rims, lightweight and 19 inches in front, 20 inches in the back. Now, moving on to the rear of the M2, you can still see that same boxy, squared off design that runs through the bumper and the diffuser area, as well as the boot lid. Now, I still think it gives off a Gundam vibe. Am I going crazy? Does anybody else see it? Do you see it? Anyway, moving on, we have the rear diffuser here that actually continues the flow from the bottom of the exhaust mufflers, which I think is quite cool. And you also get quad tailpipes, which are all real. And they're also valves, so you can toggle through inside whether you want more or less noise. Now, I will be climbing into this boot. It is actually fairly large for a coupe. As you can see, I can almost fully hide myself in here. There's 390 liters of space. Now, the rear seats do not fold down, but there is a ski hatch I can use to have a bit more through loading into the actual cabin. Now, although the M2 is a coupe, it is a 2+2, which means there are rear seats. And as a professional, I must now climb into those rear seats for your viewing pleasure. So all you have to do is use this to flick the front seat forward. It will automatically move itself a little bit further forward. Okay. Now just pull the seat back. It will whir itself back into place. And you know what? I actually have space. It's not a lot of space. If I sit up straight, my head hits the ceiling, and I have no leg room, no extra leg room is what I should say. But for a short trip, I could sit back here. This is my driving position. I'm 1.8 meters tall. It is a usable space. Back here, I have aircon vents and climate controls. I have a tray for me to put my phone or something. I don't have cup holders, but there are speakers, reading light, and it's not great. I have an okay amount of space. So if you are a shorter individual, like a child or a short king, this will be perfectly fine for you on even medium to long journeys. And there are ISOFIX mounting points back here. So you could put a child seat to bring your infant or your young child on a long road trip in your sports car. So welcome to the front seats of the BMW M2. And the first thing I want to talk about are the seats. So these are nice sports seats covered in leather. BMW seats usually hurt my back, but these ones in particular have been very good to me. I haven't had any issues whatsoever, and they've been very comfortable throughout my whole drive. Now, moving on to the infotainment system. So this is now using BMW's OS 8, and it's all operated through this giant 14.9-inch BMW curved display. And in conjunction with that, I also have this 12-point-something-inch digital gauge cluster in front of me, and the head-up display behind that. Now, as usual with modern-day infotainment systems, I do not like the fact that my aircon controls are locked behind a menu. Now, speaking of the stuff down here, in the center console, I have wireless charging pad, but if I wanted to, I can go completely wire-free because this also has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Now, if you want to plug your phone in, you can. There's a Type A port up here, along with the cup holders, and there's a Type C port under the armrest in here. Now, this whole center console area is finished in carbon fiber, as well as the dash and the steering wheel. And these have all the hard buttons for your OS 8 system, for the infotainment system. You also have your auto start stop, your engine start stop button, your M modes, as well as your noisy button for the exhaust. Enough of all of this. I can't wait to drive, so let's go. Now this is a sports car. Now, I'll get it out of the way first. I know what people are going to say. Oh, it's so beast, it weighs 1.8 tons, it's too much. And yes, sure, it is a lot of weight. But just like how we shouldn't do in real life, we also should not fat shame cars, especially this car. Now, first up, the throttle response. Below 2500 or so, it is a little lethargic. But once you're in the rev range, the engine is so happy to just keep revving it and rev all the way out, and it just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling. Now, as long as you're in the right gear, exiting a corner is a proper experience because you really have to manage the throttle on your exits and be wary of their rear wheel drive. Just like that, this car is one that demands respect and throttle discipline, especially if you're in one of the sportier modes with the traction control dialed back. Now, that's not to say that there's a lack of mechanical grip. Oh, no. There is more than enough mechanical grip to make your passengers feel all pukey. It's got 275 front tires and 285 rears. As objectively massive tires and correspondingly massive amounts of grip. But because of that, if and when it does break traction, you better have your wits about you because you're going to be going a lot faster when it does go sideways. But even if and when the rear does step out on you, this car is so beautifully balanced that I found it really easy to catch and hold a slide. I can feel everything through my backside, and the car just works in harmony with you with its 50-50 weight distribution. The suspension tuning is so well done. There's almost no body roll, very minimal amount, just enough to get the weight loaded onto the outside tires. And over bumps, it just soaks it up so well. You get the compression, you get the rebound, and that's it. There's no secondary bounce, there's no drama, there's no extra bounce that you don't want. It just settles and go. You're on to the next corner. Now let's stop for a second and talk complaints, because I have a couple. So first, this car doesn't sound very nice. It's just flat, there's no note to it, and honestly, it really is just noise. In my drive, even in the sportier modes, I've found myself just turning the exhaust into quiet mode. I also don't think the gearbox is very quick. It's really slow to give me my upshifts. I'd much rather have the optional 6-speed manual and do it myself. I think that would really put the icing on the M2 cake. But my biggest complaint is that there's just way too many settings and modes. Let me show you what I mean. So I can come to this, the M mode button, and toggle between road, sport and track, which changes my gauge cluster as well as the heads-up display and turns off some of the driver assistance systems, but those are not the driver assistance systems like traction control. Those are stuff like lane departure warning and blind spot monitoring and stuff like that. If I want to change my drive modes, I can then come to either the M1 or M2 buttons on the steering wheel to access two safe presets. But to change the presets, I have to go to Setup, and then look at this. I have engine, chassis, steering, brake. Here's the M1 configuration, and engine, efficient, sport, sport plus. Sure, I can change the engine, the chassis, the steering. Transmission alone has 6 different settings of how aggressive you want it to be. I can choose between comfort and sport brakes. Why? I firmly believe that brakes are not something that you should be able to adjust the settings of. I just want brakes. I don't want my brakes to change the way they feel. And then we have the M traction control with 10 different levels of assistance. Sure, fair enough. And if you want to turn all of that off, you can come to this. You can come to this, the M drift analyzer, to activate drift mode. It'll turn all the traction off and then it'll rate you on your drift. Someone here, look at this guy, he's done a 65% performance drift. Who would do something like this? Now, saying all of that, once you do find a setting you like, it's so addictive to just keep hammering away lap after lap after lap, turn after turn after turn, because like I said, the car rewards you for doing so. The steering is a little dead feeling, but it's direct and accurate. You can feed the nose of this car wherever you want it to, and the car just takes it. It's such a joy to drive, and you want to just keep driving it and driving hard and just keep going and going and going and going. But of course, you can't keep going and going and going and going. And that's the part which makes me a little sad. Because cars like these, they're on the way out. There's just no way in today's world of emissions and global warming and whatnot that building cars like this with a 3-litre straight 6 is sustainable. And I fully recognize that. During my drive so far, I've averaged 6.2 km per litre. Sorry, Earth. It's such a strange, weird, scary time to be a car guy, because we're all in this strange transition period between the past and the future. There's so much uncertainty with what's coming next. So I guess all we can do is just keep driving. And in cars like this M2, that's all I want to do. We really should be celebrating cars like the M2, because this is undoubtedly going to be one of the last purely internal combustion engine sports cars that'll be built. I know everyone keeps harping on it, but the fact of the matter is the age of the gas guzzlers is over. There is no way that in today's world we can keep getting away with building 3-litre powerhouses like this that drink petrol like it's going out of fashion. And I applaud BMW for keeping it alive as long as they have. If you have the chance to drive one of these, or even better, buy one of these, I highly recommend giving it a go, because the truth is, they're not going to be around forever. And on that very sad note, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to like, share and subscribe. I'll see you soon.